Hi, welcome to a Roboflow training movie. Here is an example of a training movie that is going to create an email report that gives the user an overview of information that is in your $statistics catalog. To take a closer look at the workflow is looking into the $statistics and has, in this example, a query of the creation date, which is the entry record. So for a record, this would be the item creation date, but in the $statistics catalog, this is called creation date. And we are looking here at searches with result bigger than 1. So this is one way to do it, to say, I want for the past 30 days, I want this result. This workflow will then get a list of records, and it will actually gather the information about the search terms. So it will create internally a little list, a hash table, in which it will store the search terms used, and it will count how many times this search term was actually used. So how many successful searches did a user do? Then, so you can define what the group by is in this case. So what I'm doing is I do a lowercase of the field search terms. So that way it gives you the opportunity to count upper or lowercase as the same search term. Apple with a capital A is the same search term as apple with a lowercase a, and so that's why we don't see that as a difference. But you could if it is necessary. Then there is a count field, so the field that we are looking at and expecting to have a value is called the count field, and that count field has to have a value, and then if it has a value, then it will automatically add 1 to this particular process, to this particular field. Then for the report that it is creating, it is having a template, and that template consists of 3 parts. It has a header, a footer, and a body. And so here, this is the header, this is the footer. So you can personalize this to whatever you like: search term, count, and then this is what you will be processing. So the value key and the value, this is at the end of the workflow, when it has processed all entries, it has this hash table with a value key and a value. And the value key is the search term, and the value is the counter. And so how many searches were successful. And that's how it's going to create a little table. Do you want to make a tab limited field or list? That is also possible. You just change the syntax here. Do you want to save this? That is also possible. All these things are very configurable. All you need to do in that case is save it to a specific file. But in this case, we're just going to add it to the body of the mail. So I'm saving this. Okay. And then the mail is going to be sent. Now, it is creating, based on this template, internally a piece of text, and that piece of text, that report, is going to be mailed. So here you can specify who the person is that needs to receive the email notification. And then here again, we have the traditional definition of your mail syntax. So you have the subject of the mail, and then you have the body of the mail, and you have a mail part per item. So we are not adding each entry of the $statistics catalog to this report. We're just bundling it into one big result, which it's called result, is an internal variable in which we build this export string. And so we are leaving this part empty, and also the traditional pickup here with the tag that is usually here to have that message inserted is also not present here. We don't want the details, we just want this this part. And so that's actually the mail that is going to be sent. It's HTML, so you can add whatever. You can say, hello dear administrator, please find the list of blah de blah. You can just use straight and simple HTML to give the body of this mail a nice look and feel. This part is configured in the other template, and this is just your mail. And so this could be search terms. You could call this successful search terms. We can also make unsuccessful search terms. Successful search terms. And then you can build also another report with not so successful search terms. So here I can say save, and then this is what the report will be. So now let's run the report. Before changing or before running it, I'm going to expand a little bit the period in which I'm searching, because I don't have a lot of test data in here. So I want to be sure that at least I have a result. So then I say start, and now the workflow performs a query against the Cumulus catalog and is executing the records found. And so show log, and you can see it's finding all these records. As you can see, in the past 300 days, I only had 30 searches in this version of Cumulus, or 31, and so not a lot of data. But at least it's here, and then at the end it gives you an overview of the search terms that it has found, and it is then building the report and sending the report. So here it says email sent to peter@goforflow.be. So in a moment the mail should arrive. So let's have a look. So here it is. As I said, the title of the mail and the layout of the mail is fully configurable, but here is successful search terms, and then the search terms is this, and that way you can see exactly what users are actually searching for. And so that gives you a great overview of the searches. And Roboflow, in the workflow, I also added the opportunity to have a group validator, the group being the search term. At this point, this is a regular expression, and at this point I'm just saying I'm accepting any character. But you could refine it saying that you only want for the first character to be something alphabetically. You could say that you want at least 3 characters, or that you don't want to search for you don't want numbers in the result. So all that is just configurable by a regular expression. If you prefer not to have this report in the mail, but you prefer to have this in an attachment, a tablet, the text that could be opened in Excel or something, that too is of course possible out of the box. That would just require adding here target field name, and it would write that to that specific field name, and you would have an export stored somewhere on your network. You could again attach that file then to the mail. So lots of possibilities on how to deal with these reports. and very easy to fine-tune. If you now want a report where the result is is bigger than is equals 0, so if you want to get the search terms that did not end up with a result, well, then you can automatically change the query. One final thing that is important to think about is that this is today minus a number of days. If you're running this workflow on a daily basis, then of course that is should be today minus 1, and then it's just looking for the results of today. If you want a bigger period, like you want to use a month, then the problem is today minus so many days. There is not minus 1m to say 1 month, for instance. But Roboflow can solve that for you. So you can, instead of using this, you can use the Roboflow placeholder or inline scripting element, that is this one, because this date time calculates a date time, and then you can say that you want to subtract a number of items and or entities, and the entity in this case is month. You can set week, day, year, and so you can add or subtract, so you can calculate a date. That way you can more precisely, if you're running this on the 1st of the month, you can say, give me a report of everything of the past month. So then you cannot express that in a number of days, because each month can have a different amount of days, but you can express it like this with month minus 1. So as I said, then you would run this, for instance, at 5 minutes past midnight on the 1st of a month. So that's an option. In that case, for instance, here this would be the interval would look like this, exclamation mark, to make sure that it doesn't run when Roboflow is restarted, and then you could say M1, and then the time would be the time would be then, and so you can find all this here down below. So here M1, something like this, is then, and of course you would say 0005. Yeah, it's best to take it as close, or even 01, to midnight as possible, just to have only the results of the previous month, and that way it will run every month at 1 minute past midnight. And as I said, careful, you need to prefix this with an exclamation mark. And if you have two of these, one for where the result equals and the other one where the result does not equal, well then that is two different reports that you can run. If you have a lot of these reports to run, different kinds of reports from the same, then the workflow could be made different, that it is just processing queries from a parameter file, doing the one after the other. But this is not necessary in this case. So as a final change, I'm going to fine-tune a little bit my result in that way that I define an export layout. So if I leave this field empty, it's not gonna create, sorry, this one, it's not gonna create an export file path, but now, so it didn't in the previous run, but now this field is here, so it will export the result to this particular file. If you have such an export file, you can also mail it. So you, in the mail configuration, you can add a placeholder called like this, and this part is just referencing to an internal variable in which I stored the path to the file that is created. And so that way you can very easily add, instruct Roboflow to add this file as an attachment. So let's run this. Oh, and one final thing I didn't like the fact that some of the search terms were just numbers, or just was an @ sign. So all that is, of course, configurable with a group validator. So in this group validator, I said the first character can only be a letter. Uppercase or lowercase doesn't matter, but it can only be a letter. And then anything after can be letters and digits and a space and a minus, and you can add whatever other characters you're allowing to be in the search term. And that's how you can configure that. That's how you can make sure that this report is a little bit cleaner and only has information that really interests you. So if I start the workflow, and I do show log, I can see that it has a complete list. It has also the list that it exports is now more refined, so it doesn't have all these @ signs and numbers that you were searching for. And it has created an export file, and it has this. So if I look at the export file, I can go and have a look, and I can see that searches this month. So I created a dynamic name. If I double click, it's this is my report. Again, it can be as nice or as simple as you like, and also it can be a tab limited text file or whatever. You can call it .xls, and then if you double click it, it will open in Excel. But if I do get messages here, I will receive a new report. And actually I ran this test twice, so I will probably receive 2 reports. So here it goes there, but let's take a look at the last one. That's the one we just ran. So this is just the mail. And so as I said, you can add as many text to make this more readable or acceptable. And if you want a second Roboflow instance to have this particular oh sorry, that's not what I want to go to. If you want a second Roboflow instance to have the empty searches, you just duplicate the workflow and you change here in the parameters that the result count needs to be equals to 0, and that's all there is to it to change this report. Don't forget, in this test version it's minus 24 months. I think probably you will run this monthly, so this should be here, instead of minus 24, it should be minus 1. And then if I run this workflow again, it will give a different result. Maybe an empty result, could be. And so maybe there was no, yeah, it was not started because it's running on a time interval. I have to start it twice because the exclamation mark says the first time it's kicked off, you don't kick it off, and because you changed it, it's going to change. Oh, sorry, I need to start it first. So let's look at the result. So we can see that there's a shorter result, there's less found, and actually in it is just a couple of entries. You can see, and so you can see 9 results, but it has only counted 4, which means that some of the results don't have a value or are not according to the group acceptable. So now if we look at the mail again, get messages, and here it comes. waiting for a mail always takes a while, and there you can see there's your result. And of course in this mail you should change the text into unsuccessful or failed searches, or so you can see that sometimes people are searching for a category, like in this case, and this is the way you can search for a complete category path. So this failed. Okay, so thank you for joining this training movie. You can see that there are a lot of possibilities. You can build in a lot of flexibility into your reports. If you have any questions, just let me know.